Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 men and injured a third at a Black Lives Matter protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year. Tonight, he's a free man, cleared of all charges. Joining the discussion is Aisha Mills, host of BNC's Amplified, and BNC's legal contributor Paul Henderson and criminal defense attorney Sue Ann Robinson are still with me. Aisha, welcome. Listen, conservatives are calling Kyle Rittenhouse a hero. What is your reaction to that and this verdict?
Oh my God, I'm so disgusted by it. I want us to never forget the image of Kyle Rittenhouse getting out of jail on bail and being celebrated and lauded by the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys and all the white nationalists and the white supremacists, and he threw up a white nationalist sign in a picture, gleeful, as he was walking out of that jail. We should all have that picture ingrained in our minds as a reminder of who he is and who his people are. And I got to tell you that my grandmother always said that you can judge a person by who they roll with. And he rolls with Proud Boys and Boogaloo Boys and was actually out there on that night with them, invited by a militia to, quote unquote, keep the peace, but ultimately to police Black people and our allies. And that is how we ended up in this mess that we have right now. But I don't want anybody to for a minute think that this kid is, you know, some kind of hero, because he ain't, and he's rolling with white nationalists.
Well, President Biden also chimed in saying, the following. Let's listen to him.
I stand by what the jury has concluded. The jury system works, and we have to abide by it.
Paul, even if the evidence didn't support a guilty verdict, people, especially Black folk, ain't trying to hear all that. What they see is a white kid who walked around with a rifle during a crowded protest get off, when a Black kid like Tamir Rice gets killed on sight for playing with a toy gun.
Right, and even with the president's comments, and then he also later alluded to being angry or concerned, but he believed in the system. I think the issue and the takeaway for us and for our viewers is, how do we conflate that anger and concern into action? What is the advocacy here? And I believe that advocacy is dismantling and attacking and or challenging vigilantism as being defined by this ruling, especially when, again, understanding that vigilantism is law enforcement action without legal authority. Because he was acting on behalf of law enforcement in this case, where he acted with their authority, with their permission, and in fact, at some levels, even with their encouragement, we really have to take this back, this advocacy in our next steps, into looking at the boundaries of law enforcement once again, where we're having the same conversation about both reform and accountability for all the bucket of vigilantism and law enforcement.
Sue Ann, how do we respect a jury's verdict? I mean, as lawyers, we understand that that's what we have to do, but people don't respect the verdict when they don't respect the process.
Right, absolutely. And I think, you know, Biden making that initial comment is being insensitive to the reality that the criminal justice system has a disparate impact on people of color. It's him being insensitive to the people who put him in office. And so to me, that's why I was saying initially that we wanted this trial and the outcome of the trial to essentially answer a political question, which is, does society accept white vigilantes? Is Biden going to step in and do something about it? And the answer right now is no, no. And he has no reason to, because we're not holding him accountable or asking for anything that he's actually doing. I mean, my question when I initially saw his comment was, so since you want to enter the chat on this, are we going to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? Since you want to enter the chat on criminal justice, let's talk about something that you can help with.
Aisha, to you, was it necessary for President Biden to chime in on this matter?
No, I don't think that I agree. I don't think that he said anything that was useful or that'll ultimately be fruitful. I don't see why he needed to comment at all, because the truth is, and I am not the lawyer in this room, you guys are, but the truth is that there are the legalities of the thing, and I think it's dangerous when a president does try to get into the crux of an actual legal outcome. But absolutely, that is so true. There are a lot of things that he could do politically. There are things that he could do with his Department of Justice in terms of ramping up how we're going to deal with white nationalism and the rise of white nationalism in this country. We know that the greatest threat to America right now is the rise of domestic terrorism, which is ultimately the rise of white supremacist domestic terrorism. And so there are so many things that this administration can be doing to curb that, combat that. And then, of course, if he really wants to do something around how we're going to reform the criminal justice system writ large, but more so policing. Because the problem here is really about policing. Remember, all of this started because police shot a man there in Kenosha who thankfully has lived, but Jacob Blake, that's what all this is about. And so if Biden really wants to address the crisis that we have right now with, frankly, racist policing practices and policies, then we need to deal with the Justice for George Floyd Act, but there's so many other things that need to come on the heels of that as well. And he has stopped short of actually talking about police accountability in a real meaningful way and being able to hold dirty cops accountable for their misdeeds. And that in and of itself is a problem, because having tepid comments with no teeth does nothing for anybody.
Paul, this idea that we need to respect the jury's verdicts, we talk about how the law has to remain separate and apart from race and politics, but is that realistic, especially when we know how this would have played out if Kyle Rittenhouse was black?
Yeah, well, I think it's realistic, but only if we broaden the definition and are involved in what those definitions look like. Listen, I'm a lawyer just like you do, and we have worked within these. But those systems only work to the degree they give us race-neutral outcomes, and that we, and I mean we, people of color, communities of color, and disenfranchised communities are at the table of decision-making and definitions, so that we have say-so in terms of what public safety is, and we have say-so in terms of what outcomes are for our criminal justice system. This case stands as a reminder to all of us that it's not just police that need to be reformed. It's our judicial process that needs reforming. It's our criminal justice process that needs reforming. And that's where we all advocate for.
Sue Ann, your thoughts on keeping the two separate?
I think you have to keep them separate to a certain extent. But the idea is that when you have a ruling like this with a judge being so blatant, it erodes the integrity and the trust further and further and further of these institutions that are pillars of our society. And if you objectively are permitting that or taking part in that, then you're part of the problem. And so by, the political leaders and political players not addressing these issues and not putting things in place to restore our confidence in the justice system, they are a part of the problem. And so I think there has to be a point when all these things come together to make a solution that restores the integrity in our thoughts about the justice system.
I want to read a tweet that really struck me, and I want to get your thought on this, Aisha. Angelo Pinto 720 says, white folks just have to be white to get the full benefits of justice. Black folks have to go to jury duty, organize across the country, appeal to governors, call governors' daughters, shame states and elected officials, mobilize to elect presidents, just to get half of what we want.
I mean, that's right on the money, right? And just even thinking about this case, you got this kid, a 17-year-old kid who is armed with a rifle that he shouldn't have had, right? Because it was technically, he shouldn't have actually had that rifle. He wasn't of the age where he lived to even be able to own this thing. So you've got a guy that's kind of illegally got this gun who can shoot people who are actually protesting lawfully. And that's the thing that is really, I think, what all of us are watching. And then he can go and he can run by the cops with this gun after he done killed some people and not even be, no one's thinking anything about this being a bizarre scene out in the street. And it is that double standard. It's not just, the politics of the thing. It is really the culture of white nationalism and supremacy in this country that just gives the benefit of the doubt and the assumption of good-heartedness to crazy white people, frankly, to white people who do harm. Kind of shrug that off and think, oh, no, and automatically assume that black people are guilty, even if we're just jogging. or driving our car or talking to our mothers on the phone on the sidewalk. That is really a cultural issue that we are not necessarily going to get through the politics or through the policy, and certainly not the law. None of this stuff is race neutral. It really is about how we shift and shape the culture in this country.
Aisha, thank you so very much for joining me tonight. Y'all make sure to catch her brilliant show, Amplified, weeknights at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on BNC.